Matthew chapter 2. Joseph had a dream, and the Lord told him, get out of Israel and get to Egypt. Got Jordan on my mind today. Egypt. Well, that's not a short drive. I mean, that's from where they were in Bethlehem. That was a sizable journey. Not insurmountable, but it wasn't like just, take a few hours. No, several days journey. And God had provided for the cost to be covered, right? The gifts were from the Magi were gold, frankincense, and myrrh. The tradition that we can look at would lead me to believe that it wasn't just a little bit of gold. They believed they were paying homage to a king. You didn't bring a little gold to a king. And so I don't think they would have had money to live in luxury, and I don't think that's what they did. It doesn't seem consistent with either Mary's or Joseph's nature that we've seen so far. At any rate, they go to Egypt. Now, what was the date for this? I was curious about that. Nobody really can say. What we can say is they were there until they got word that Herod had died. That's what verse 19 says. After Herod died, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said, get up, take the child and his mother, and go to the land of Israel, for those who were trying to take the child's life are dead. We can't pinpoint how long they had been in Egypt. Debbie and I had a marvelous privilege that God just dropped on us to go to Cairo, and the Catholic tradition is very strong that Mary, Joseph, and Jesus would have gone to Cairo, and again, this is tradition, and some tradition is kind of not very accurate, but the other side of that is some traditions are. There's reason for traditions. At any rate, there's even a church of the Holy Family there that they believe, the Catholic Church believes, this was the location for where Mary, Joseph, and Jesus lived while they were in Egypt. But we don't know how long they were there. Weeks? I'm inclined to think at least months, and more likely years. We do know that Herod died in 4 BC. We have a very strong time frame then for when Mary, Joseph, and Jesus came back, but that doesn't exactly. There's lots of opinions on how long Mary and Joseph and Jesus were in Egypt. They didn't hear about Herod's demise and death by hearsay. It wasn't gossip on the street. They didn't pick it up in that way. God sent a messenger angel. The Lord appeared in a dream again to Joseph in Egypt, and the message was simple. I love how concise it was. It's not like, okay, we're going to give you lots of information here. No. This is in verse 20. The messenger, angel, and again, I'm going with Gabriel, but whatever. Get up, take the child and his mother, and go to the land of Israel. It's kind of like, okay, you're done here. Get up and go. Which, at my season of life, my get up and go has gone up and went. You might know what I'm talking about. And here's why. Because those who were trying to take the child's life are dead. Okay, we know this from history. Herod was succeeded by his son. And it would have been that Herod that during Jesus' life and as part of his kangaroo trial, he was sent to stand before Herod. That would have been, as best I can get it, Herod's son who succeeded him. Okay. There were others, maybe because it said those who were trying to take the child's life are dead. Okay, quick lesson. Nobody's going to live forever. There are forces at work today in our lives and in our worlds that are quite nefarious. But nobody's going to last forever. They're going to die. Maybe not in my lifetime. Maybe not in your lifetime. But all of us are terminal here. Just a thought. Verse 21. So he got up. I can't. I don't want to ever minimize the part of Joseph's nature that was obedient. Remember, the angel had said, "Get up." So he got up in verse 21, took the child and his mother, and went to the land of Israel. Now, there's another figure from history here that it helps us set a timeline here for this part of the narrative. When, in verse 22, but when Joseph heard that Archelaus was reigning in Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. Having been warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee. Well, so we're not going back to Bethlehem because it wasn't safe. So he went to the district of Galilee, and he went and lived in a town called Nazareth. So this fulfilled what was said through the prophets, that he would be called a Nazarene. There are lots of questions here for me, okay? Some of them, with some research and discovery, we can answer some of the questions. So when was Archelaus reigning in Judea? That can be answered. The history has been preserved so that we can know that. And it's like when Herod died in 4 BC, Archelaus took it up. Okay. Some of the first looks at this, it might seem like, well, that's kind of an interesting coincidence. Well, it's not a coincidence. This happened. God orchestrated this because it was in fulfillment of a prophecy that Jesus would be called a Nazarene. When I was young, I got that mixed up. And somehow I thought Jesus would be called a Nazarite. No. A Nazarite, well, essentially John the Baptist was a Nazarite. Samson was a Nazarite. They were strictly a Nazarite. One of their distinguishing characteristics was they never partook of anything alcoholic, no wine and no other alcoholic beverages. Well, Jesus wasn't a Nazarite. He was a Nazarene. There is a church today, as you know, the Church of the Nazarene, and that their name points back to the time that Mary, Joseph, and Jesus went back to Nazarene. This was where Mary and Joseph had been connected. I think we can even assume, we can't really. I was going to say we can assume that was where their marriage took place. It's hard. There are at least two theories about their marriage. One is when they left Nazareth to go back to Bethlehem for the taxation, Joseph had been espoused, or that's not the right word, betrothed. Mary had been betrothed to Joseph. My brain's not really firing off here full strength today. My apology. So they were not technically married when they went to Bethlehem. Another theory is they were married, and Mary was Joseph's wife when they left for Bethlehem. Well, okay, I don't know. I do know that was where they were both from. So it was in a sense, it would have been a homecoming. And I think equally, it would have been in this sense, it would have been a very logical place for them to go back to. I think the fact that they, until they found out about Archelaus, they had planned to go back. The indication is they had planned to go back to Bethlehem, tells me they had been there long enough that Joseph had established a network for his carpentry work, and so he would have had a business to go back and resuscitate. But all of that, we can't know. What we can know is they wound up going back to Nazareth in Galilee. Well, now Matthew skips a whole bunch of years from, let's say, okay, here's my deal. I think when Mary, Joseph, and Jesus left Bethlehem to go to Egypt, I think Jesus would have been about 2. I think they would have lived in Egypt, I think, more than a few months. Let's say a year. He was 3. They came back at age 3 in Jesus' life. They relocated in Nazareth. And now in Matthew's chapter 3, verse 1, we've got John the Baptist. Now, John the Baptist and Jesus were, John was like maybe 8 months, maybe even 7 months older than Jesus. So we've got this gap of years. Most scholars assume Jesus was 30 years old when he began his ministry, and John the Baptist is at the very front end of the adult story of Jesus' life. In those days, verse 1, John the Baptist came preaching in the wilderness of Judea. John the Baptist was quite an interesting character. And his message, he was a preacher. And he didn't have a church. First of all, there were no churches, only synagogues and the temple. But he was, and he wasn't even in the city. He was in the wilderness of Judea. And just for reference, that would have been right along the border between Israel and Jordan today. And let me tell you, it's wilderness. there is quite a contrast between the west side of the Jordan River and the east side of the Jordan River, even today. We're going to come back to John the Baptist next time, but I've already burned through my time. I'll see you next time on So Care with Stevie Boy.